Unmuted. Hello. Welcome to our May episode of TRPG, our talk show about all things TTRPG and geeky and people of marginalized genders showing off their TTRPG amazingness. I don't know. My brain's still tired. It's been a rough week, but I'm really excited for my co-host. I'm Nikki. I'm use she, her pronouns. I'm the producer here at TRPG, the channel, and I co-host this show with Darby, but Darby could not be here today, and so I have a guest. Guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm the substitute. I'm Kristina. I will be channeling Jack Black from School of Rock this entire time. No, just kidding. I use any pronouns, and I'm a game master and a writer, and I've GM'd here on TTRPG, so I'm really, really stoked to be here. Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, no, I love having you on the channel. So, what is in your cup today? What are you drinking?
I am drinking Summer Nights from Esthete Tea here in Portland. It's a local tea maker, and it's pink. I didn't realize it was pink until I was steeping it, and I love it even more. What's in your cup?
I'm drinking Friday Afternoon Tea's Warrior Princess, because Xena made me gay, and I'm feeling very gay today. So I've been watching Heartstopper, and it's very wholesome and cute, and I want everyone to watch it. Even though I said everyone cancel your Netflix subscriptions, I'm going to binge it before that happens.
It's so cute. I love the positive bi representation.
Right? Exactly. So there's that, and then I just love, like, because it's so wholesome that it's fine for kids to watch, because I don't know that I would be as comfortable with, like, middle schoolers watching sex education, you know what I mean? And so it's like I'm really glad that that exists for them. So anyway, what do you got going on in the TTRPG space?
Yeah, a couple of shows coming up in June that I'm really, really excited about. I'm going to be playing Pasión de las Pasiones over on Gehenna Gaming's channel starting in June. I've ran it a couple of times on stream, so I'm really excited to be a player. And so there's going to be a little horror element to it, which I'm really, really stoked for. And I am also going to be starting a actual play of Haunted West here on TTRPG in June. Another spooky, scary, but still very gay Western, which I love. I love queering the Wild West. Not that it needs queering, because it was already queer.
Well, I mean, and it's funny because it's kind of like full circle, because that's how we started the channel. Like, we had the talk show, but then our first TTRPG was your Pasión de las Pasiones stream, which, you know, that one was our all Latine stream. And right now we have our all Latine stream of Nahual.
So
I still think I'm saying that wrong.
Nahual.
They say it again.
Nahual.
Yeah. And so we, like, Googled it, tried, and I kept trying. Shadi says it beautifully. But anyway, so that's going on. And then I'm in your Haunted West stream, and I love playing with you as a GM, but I'm really excited to make people cry with mine and Cameron's backstory. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a spooky, sad, gay old time. So yeah. Well, I'm excited for all the things coming up. Oh, and we also have Starship Troopers coming up, which will be really cool if you like horrors and anti-fascist military shows, because that's what we are doing with that. So that'll be really cool. Okay, so we have two special guests today, and I'm very excited. Sea is a professional TTRPG performer, digital artist, and dramaturge working on Transplanar RPG and appearing in various other productions on channels like Friends Who Roll Dice, Gen Con TV, Gehenna Gaming, and more. Outside of the TTRPG sphere, Sea is a dramaturge for hire and a professional dancer, stage actor, and performance scholar. Connie Chong is a trans Chinese-American game master who loves telling stories about broken heroes, queer monstrosities, and divine diaspora. They're the GM for Transplanar RPG, an all-transgender, person-of-color-led D&D show, which is really, really good and you should watch, and the writer of Godkiller, a dark fantasy holy punk RPG for one player, the Godkiller, and one GM, the God. She's also obsessed with her cat, Bao Bao. Welcome to the show, Connie and C, and you're on the screen yet? I'll do it right now. Bloop. Bloop. Now you're on the screen.
Hey everyone.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for such a illustrious introduction. I like that mine was like God Killer and Bow Bow. It's very me.
We like things that are both cute and terrifying in this space, so it fits right in. So our first question today is, what's in your cup?
Connie, you want to go first?
I shall. This was a blend that was sent to us by y'all, so thank you so much for doing so. I'm not usually a tea drinker, so if I mess up with any of the, tea things, I apologize. I believe this blend is called River Spirit. There's apple in it, and I forget what else, but it tastes really good, and I'm enjoying it in my Mount Holyoke cup that I stole from Sea, because that is their alma mater.
And I am also drinking a TTRPG original. I know that it's got delicious raspberry and glitter in it, literally, and I have my Transplanar cup. So Connie and I are both juice drinkers. Neither of us drink coffee or tea or alcohol regularly at all, but we do drink like a lot of Minute Maid juice. So I love that this tea is like also very fruity. It's good.
Like I said, we are very gay around here. It is very fruity, in all the best ways.
Appropriately fruity.
Well, speaking of how gay it is, can you tell us about how you met and about your first D&D game together?
Absolutely. What a segue. What a segue. Gotta give you a star for that. Gotta give you props for that. Gay stars. So how we met, C and I love telling the story, is technically what we tell people is on the bus, because we went to the same consortium of colleges in Western Massachusetts. I went to Hampshire College, and C went to Mount Holyoke College, which is part of the 5-college consortium in Western Massachusetts, where students enrolled at one institution can take classes at other ones, and etc. There's a lot of cross-pollination. So we also share a bus line. So we met for the first time in person on the bus, on the PIVTA, as Mount Holyoke students would say, the PVTA, as normal people would say. The Pioneer Valley Transit
the PIVTA.
Association.
Thank you.
The PVTA. We met on the PVTA, where C tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around and we started talking. That's the official story. But there's
the
actually
unofficial story. The real story is that we matched on Tinder and we were going on a date later that week, and then Connie got on the bus, looked at my face, and then sat in front of me and did not seem to recognize who I was, but I immediately recognized them. So I tapped them on the shoulder and I was like, hey, you're going on a date with me in 5 days. Nice to meet you. And then Connie got off the bus immediately. Because
wait, the way you're making it sound is like you confronted me, I ignored you and left. That's not what happened at all. I came on, I'm oblivious. I have ADHD. I've got blinders on when I came on. If I looked at you, I was seeing but not looking. I was looking but not seeing. I came on, I sat down in front of you. I feel a tap, and a very cute, very queer person says, hey, I think we're going on a date in a few days. It was not confrontational. It was very sweet. Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, we totally are. We started talking, and then I was like, I have to get off. This is my stop. I work right here. We
for
talked for
clarity,
a single
Connie
stop.
Yeah, Connie was on the bus for not 5 minutes. Literally got on the bus, and then the next stop that was, again, not 5 minutes away was when Connie got off the bus. So that is how we officially met. But we didn't actually play in any D&D games until junior year, when we started to see each other more seriously. And the funny story about that, in my opinion, which was that this is my first ever D&D game. And it was GM'd by a mutual friend of ours. And I was like, oh my God, look at all of these things I can be. I'm going to play this weird goth bird, and I'm going to be a bird who died once. And I dig graves, and that's my whole thing. I'm a bird that digs graves, because that's how I am. And then Connie comes in with this super hot gender slutty bard, and was like, you're playing a bird? How am am I supposed to flirt with you in game?
Literally, this was C's first time playing like D&D sitting down. So I came up with John Sully Tahid, College of Glamour bard, water like Air Ganassi, right? Like she had this whole thing where she was this like, you know, runaway princess from this like Air Ganassi kingdom on a cliff, and like I was like they're really hot, you know, they're like wind blows, College of Glamour, and then I like in DMs like over text I was like, so C, what character are you making? Because I was like, we should play D&D together because I wanted to do it to flirt with them, and they were like, I'm making a Kenku who's like covered in grave dirt all the time, and like when they talk it sounds like a train whistle, and they carry a shovel, and I was like, okay, I will do my best to kiss that thing, but
I gotta give you props for trying. I didn't know that D&D could be a vehicle for romance. And since then, I have learned in our home games that Connie and I have played, I have since learned that D&D is indeed a vehicle for romance. And I love that for me personally.
I gotta know, did you kiss the bird?
in classic D&D fashion, we played 3 sessions and never played again. We like didn't even get to. Our DM had this whole plot planned about these like evil dragonborn, I think. We never got to it. And this was like my first time playing in a game, and like my first or second year ever playing D&D, so I had no idea what I was doing. I was a forever GM up until that point, so I went a little murder hobo. Constantly, not gonna lie. I like started attacking people because I got bored, and that was Gabe, I'm so sorry. You were a great dungeon master, and I was horrible to you.
You know,
we didn't deserve you.
We talked about that on our last episode about playing characters that are cathartic. Because, like, you know, like one of my longest run characters I played early on in playing TTRPGs was a disaster bisexual rogue who just did what she wanted. And while everyone else was arguing about what to do with the prisoners, she just walked up and shanked him and got rid of him. And so, like, problem solved. And she was drunk all the time. Like, she was a mess. But I'm a teacher. I'm the mom friend. Like, I'm always so good that I really wanted to play a messy character. And it's cathartic. It's cathartic to, like, make chaos. So it sounds like
I love to be a villain,
right? It sounds like you got into TTRPGs through Connie. How did you get into TTRPGs?
I'd always known that D&D existed, and for the longest time, because I equated back then that D&D with TTRPGs. I didn't even know there was a term for what D&D was. I thought it was just D&D. You know, like Kleenex versus tissue paper.
Yeah.
What really got me into like wanting to start my own campaign and doing it was the Adventure Zone. I started listening to that because all my friends from high school, this was like right when we'd graduated, like all my friends from high school were like listening to it. So I was like, I'll give it a listen. And I really fell in love with like their chemistry at the table, with all the fun they were having. I was like, this sounds like a video game, but better. Like, because you get to like improvise and like do stuff that a video game wouldn't let you do. So that really drew me to it. And I loved the focus on character and story and like the plot that the DM in Adventure Zone was putting together. So I decided to start GMing because why not? And you know, started with a lot of home games, right, over the course of like a year, maybe year and a half, throughout, you know, college, and now, you know, it's expanded gradually into Transplanar and doing actual play stuff. Especially as someone who's always I've always been like a big like improv nerd, like all through middle school, high school, and college. Like for like 10 something years, like I just did improv and I loved it. And I forced C to come to many an improv show in college. And so C has seen me at my lowest, my absolute lowest. This is true. And I'm also like I got a double major in screenwriting and critical race studies. So screenwriting plus the improv plus like the nerddom of D&D just appealed to me. So that's what drew me in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Going to those improv shows was an act of love. You probably should have known how into you I was from like the first time I went, and then I came back the second time.
You hear that, Car? Car, do you hear that? Before COVID, my fiance did a lot of improv, and so when we first started dating, I definitely went to their improv show. So
it is an act of love.
Yeah.
To be fair, I showed up at a lot of your dance shows,
It's
but
true.
those weren't like those are good. those are actually.
I
good,
imagine those
so-
are really beautiful, though.
You did good improv once. I remember some of those jokes.
once.
I remember how cute
once.
you were.
Nice.
That's the important part.
I love this. I love the dynamic that is happening here. And I hate to break it up, but I want to know, Connie, what does a session 0 look like for you, and how do you prep? And what topics do you like to cover in your session 0?
Sure. It really depends on what I'm running a session 0 for. If it's a streamed game or a home game, and if it's a one-shot miniseries or a long-term campaign with no definite end. So my session 0s look very different for all three of those things. I would say, as a general rule, safety tools are a must. I always go over safety tools, lines and veils, getting everyone's lines and veils out there, just in front of everyone, so that's covered. Going over all the tools we have during play, like the X card, X and O, buddy system, cam off, etc., and explaining what all those things mean. I also, something important to me is to go over, this is less important for a home game, but also important still, going over the themes of, I think, the show, the session, the one shot, the miniseries, etc., and making sure that all the players at the table are really, really, really on board with the kind of story we're telling together. In particular, in regards to actual plays, C, as my dramaturg, you can chime in as well for this. We're very specific. So for Transplanar, it's organized by arcs. We have 8 arcs total planned, and we're currently wrapping up recording on arc 6, and we're going to start streaming that next Saturday. Each arc has a different theme, or like a different kind of thing we're exploring, and Transplanar's main campaign, The Second Stranger, has overarching themes as well that informs every arc that we do. So like, for example, it would be like, okay, arc 4 is the murder mystery at an imperial palace, right? Like that's like the main conceit of it, and the themes we're going to be exploring are like family, right? And like bloodline, right? And heritage, right? And like arc 3 was like the carnival, like the conceit of it, the stuff on the surface we discussed, but also the stuff beneath the surface, like the kinds of conflicts and challenges and hard choices that I'm going to be throwing at my players so they're aware of what they're buying into. And so we can work together to tell a good story for the audience, and also a good story for ourselves that feels good and empowering, and I think, and fun and entertaining. I always also like to round out my session 0s with wishes. So I always like to get like wishes from my players about like what they want to happen. I'll be like, the way I like to phrase it is like, what would disappoint you if it didn't happen? Right, in like the series, like what is a must-have, and I'll like always try to work it in. If it's a session 0 where we're starting from scratch, like also building characters or introducing a new system for the first time, I'll like go over the important parts of the system that are relevant to the scope of play. If it's a one-shot and we're all doing a new system, I'll be like, we can ignore like 80% of the rules. We're only going to be interfacing with these, and these mechanics, so only worry about those, right? Like, don't worry about your equipment or like chase rules or like multi-tiered battle, like that shit. I don't want to swear. I don't know what the
you can swear, it's fine.
Perfect. Like that shit doesn't matter, right? So we can throw that shit to the side, right? But the stuff that does matter, we'll talk about. And if we're building characters also, if this is also a character generation session 0, then I'll have like prompts prepared, and I'll also like decide, like during the session 0, we'll make characters together based on the world and like tie them to each other, and I'll ask follow-up questions to be like, oh, the two of you are rivals. What is something that each of you is better than the other at, or something, like to generate drama off from the bat, and to like seed player buy-in into session 0 before it even starts. So we never end up with a situation where players are like, I don't know why I should care about this quest, because I build that into the session 0. I think those are like the greatest hits. I can't, like, everything else is probably more minor stuff and really, I guess, like contextual or dependent on the needs of the particular game. But see if I'm missing anything, if you want to chime in here about anything.
No, I think you covered it fully top to bottom. Well done.
That's kind of one of the things I love about PBTA games is the questions that connect all the players, and played in a game with Ellis who uses PBTA questions in D&D games to connect everybody, which I love. And so I just think, like, I don't know, it's just really important to connect everybody. So kind of related to some of the stuff that you were talking about, C, what's been your favorite part of working as a dramaturge and lore keeper?
Ooh, my favorite part? I love to hurt my fellow players. Not to sound evil on main, and if you're in Transplanar, you know what I mean. But I love tragedy, and I'm a sucker for tragedy, and a lot of Transplanar like themes pull on a lot of different like dark topics, and we're all like really down and really into that. So I think one of my favorite things as a dramaturg and a lore keeper are to see the different like knives that players are setting up, that people are setting up, all of the context that goes on with these like really, really rich character dynamics that we have, and be like, oh, it would just hurt so bad if this happened, wouldn't it? Wouldn't Gentle just be heartbroken if Bud got stolen by Sitlolly's ex? Oh, that would suck, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be so tragic if Duran accidentally killed Oka's mentor? You know, like just it's my favorite thing to do is come up with those little, it makes me sound really evil, but it is one of my favorite things to do, is to just kind of like add those deepening layers of drama and complexity, I think, to different stories and different characters. And I think, Connie, you can if you think I'm wrong, but I love doing that. I love to like whisper evil things in Connie's ear.
That's like a running joke between us when we have like a dramaturgy or like creative or like development meetings, where I'll be like, I really want to throw a challenge at Duran. I really want their faith to be tested. I want them to be tempted by the big bad. And like V will come in, not V, C will come in and like whisper in my ear, like Black Phillip from The Witch, like, wouldst thou like to GM deliciously? And like slip me the most evil fucked up thing I've ever heard of, like under the table, and I'll be like, I will do that, thank you. So if like, honestly, from like arc 4 onward, maybe even before, honestly, like a lot of the biggest twists and like have started from C. Right? Like they'll offer these ideas and I'll be like, okay, and I'll execute them, right? And like a lot of like the moments where like players have been like, what the hell is happening? We're like, what? Like that, we have C to thank. Not gonna lie, we have C to thank. So my challenge as a GM, whose dramaturg is also a player, is to keep things from C. Certain specific things that I can't share with them because it's too critical to the plot, right? Like I can't have their input on it. So I think I've done a good job when I surprise my dramaturg, when I surprise my lore keeper.
Yep, and they have a lot. And there's like that fine line where I'm just like, and that I think is about specifically like other players, whereas like the plot twists and the lore twists come from Connie, and I'm like, okay, well, if you set that up in the lore, does that mean that this is true, which means that we can like stab so-and-so in the back this way? And that's kind of like how I operate in this like modus operandi of being both a player and a dramaturg, which is also, I think, a really, really fun space to play into. Where I'll give Connie like, if X then Y, and Connie will be like, well, I can't tell you if Y. Well, I'm like, well, X if like Z, you know what I mean? So it's fun to also just kind of as a dramaturg, like just throw ideas, because I think part of the work of dramaturgy is to not get attached to my own ideas. Like I'm here to be a sounding board and a resource for my GM, not necessarily to like direct my GM.
Yes.
And that's really fun for me.
And I would say that as a lore keeper who's also a player, you definitely know more, I don't want to say spoilers, but like you know how I think and you know the kinds of themes I'm dealing with. So you, in that sense, you know more stuff than the other players at the table, but we still have an asymmetrical share of information between the two of us, because I really relish in actually making plot twists, like actually plot twists, that like every player is surprised by, including C. There is this moment in Arc 4, right? Where like, so there's this assassin. It's the murder mystery arc, where the twist of us is the murder hasn't happened yet, and the person who's gonna get murdered has precognition. So they know they're gonna be killed, but they don't know who the killer is. So they have to like find out who the killer is before they get killed, right? In this prophecy that they've seen. And this person who's gonna be killed is also C's character's dad, who is also the emperor of a kingdom. No big deal. So like, I from episode 1, we run 16 episode arcs. From episode 1, I was like, I know who the killer is. It's this person, and I'm gonna build it up. I'm gonna put in little bits of foreshadowing. And to like sort of like really, I was like, I have to set this up to twist the knife, right? We're gonna have them show up at these innocent seeming NPCs places, whose places seemingly have been like I would built in these set pieces about these characters who were actually the killers. And C, as my dramaturg, was like, this doesn't make sense, Connie. Why are you bringing us there? These NPCs don't make sense here. Like, they're just random NPCs you introduce in, like, episode 3. Why are they here? And I'd be like, and I was like, trust the process. Trust the process. And they were like, who is the killer? Oh, it's XYZ, right? Okay, well, if we set that up, then this can happen. Da-da-da. And I was like, trust the process, C. Trust the process. And then I, like, revealed it, right? Like, the second to last episode during the finale, and C, like, lost their shit. They, like, lost their mind. They trusted the process. And it paid off. And they trusted the process again for the following arc. And it paid off as well. And that's my best feeling as a GM working with the dramaturg, is when I'm finally like, all right, gloves off, dramaturg, like you step away. Like, this is no longer your space. Let me do my thing. And like see the look of surprise on C's face when I do the thing.
I love that. Oh, that's so much fun. Everybody go watch. It's going to be good. So Connie, speaking of gloves off, what is your, once that is done, what does your prep look like? And how do you keep everything organized, especially with a show like Transplanar, where you have the two casts with intertwined stories?
That's a great question. My own organized chaos is I do everything over Google Docs. I know, like, production-wise, it's all over Google Docs. It's in these neatly separated folders. I can even pull it up right now just to reference while I talk. But I have folders separated. I have it called main campaign documents for all my GM notes. And under my main campaign documents, I have 3 subfolders. One is world, the other is story, and the third is homebrew for like random stuff I come up with, like homebrew subclasses and mechanics and whatnot. But the main 2 things are separated between world and story. So world is where I store all my notes about various factions in Endake, specific kinds of items, specific organizations, specific kinds of like dungeon builds that I'm thinking of, like my random scratch notes for just stuff in the world. I don't interact with that folder as much as I do with the second folder, which is story, which I keep a separate Google Doc for every session. I have like new, fresh like notes for each session, with all my prep stuff in it. And I have under story, like arcs 1 through 6 currently have their own folders that I just keep all of the session notes in. And, starting in arc 5 when we, accepted 4 new players, making 8 total. I also started keeping 2 separate session 0 sheets, one for the party A and one for party B, which is where I keep all of my players' wishes. And I always get player wishes from my players at the end of each session. So it's a building, breathing list. And I check them off whenever I've like fulfilled them. So I like keep a running tally of the wishes, and I make sure to integrate them into the main campaign document. And an important part of my session prep is to look at all the wishes that haven't been done yet and be like, can this roleplay scene go into the session? Can it fit here? Can this specific like conflict happen here? And like sort of like mix and match and sort of fit it in. So every PC gets a shine in a way that's relevant to their specific journey, but also to the greater plot. And a lot of that prep process for each session for Transplanar is also interfacing with C. I don't think I have planned a single session since arc 4, I want to say, without having talked to C first about it. It can be as limited as like, I think I'm going to do this. Okay, great. But more likely, I'll be like, here's what I've got planned, and C will look over my notes and be like, that doesn't make sense. That scene should go there. Da-da-da-da-da-da. But like, none of this is necessarily a spoiler, because C also knows what the wishes are. Like, all of us know what everyone's wishes are, and it's just in terms of juggling the wishes around. And like planning stuff out. But I always make sure to like not show them the spoilery parts, right? Just like in terms of like the overall session structure. And part of the prep for Transplanar is as well, because we're an actual play production, is before we record each session, because now we do recorded sessions instead of streamed, I always like to try to drop in like a session overview so my players know roughly what to expect during an episode. It's not a script in any way. It's just sort of like hey, probably gonna open here, and these arguments might come up based on what happened last session, and I'm probably gonna end on a cliffhanger, right? Like, kind of like that.
Yeah.
I really like that because, as a person who like can't always think on my feet, it is nice to know what's coming. And also sometimes the stories that we get into are very emotional, and so it's good to like be able to prepare myself for those things. I do like it when a GM surprises me or makes me feel real emotion, like Miguel has done recently with putting a mean girl into our campaign that actually made me feel real anger and like connected with my teenage self. And so, and that was, and that's the importance of GMing and like NPCs, which brings me to my next question. Connie, who is your favorite NPC to play? And C, who is your favorite NPC that Connie plays?
Wait, should we like give our answers at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like it's good. Okay, maybe 3 separate answers, because like our top 3 or something.
Okay.
Because I feel like
Yeah.
okay.
That's also fine, but I want to hear what your first answer is on 3. So 1, 2, 3.
Dr.
Kane.
Luso.
Ah.
Kane is good. Kane was my runner-up.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I obviously love Dr. Luso, but I love the way you play Kane because Kane is a nightmare individual. And you do that really well. And I love somebody who's a nightmare individual.
I know Kane would be really pleased to be number 1 in your heart. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah,
I love
really
a blue murder
Kane is so much
bard.
fun. Listen, I love playing a blue murder bard. Reformed, mostly.
Okay, you want to do the rest of your list?
Yeah, it'd be Dr. Luso Kane. Okay, I'm gonna get so much hate for this. Squeak.
I
That's not the
love
hate.
Squeak.
I like Squeak is great. Squeak is fun.
You that was close, Connie. That was really close.
It was a close call, but I liked.
Very close
I can't.
to the one white man in a docket. That was dangerous. That was really dangerous.
He's a great villain. Adam is my favorite villain that I've gotten to play really on screen so far. I don't want to. Well, there's another villain that hasn't come up yet that I'm really excited for the world to see, because she is the gaslight, a gatekeep girl boss to Adam's mansplain manipulate male wife. So
I'm ready to lay down my life for her.
she is, yeah, she's something, and I'm really excited to show her to the world.
I love compelling villains.
I love villains. This whole list is going to be villains. Oh no. I'm also thinking about our home games that we played.
Should we talk about God Killer?
Yeah, we didn't even get into that.
No, that's
Favorite
a whole
NPCs?
thing.
Oh no.
So I run a home game
no.
of God Killer while it's still in a playtest phase. It's technically not out yet in Ashcan form on Magpie Games, but it will come out hopefully by Gen Con. That's my goal, but I can't be quoted on that, but that's my goal, Gen Con, early August. It's a one-on-one, Nikki did such a great intro of it in the beginning, but for those folks who are new here, it's a one player, one GM Holy Punk, PBTA game, for the player, who is the God Killer, and the GM who is God. And it's set in this like desiccated, very Elden Ring meets The Witcher kind of realm, like a desiccated divinity, dead husks, colossal bodies of gods just littering this like irradiated magical wasteland, all around. It's like Mad Max, but like high fantasy, like dark fantasy, right? And we've been playing like how many sessions so far of a one-on-one game?
12.
Like
so
12.
far. One of them was
my God,
6
it feels
hours
like
long
more.
though, so
That's true. And a 6-hour one-on-one session is a really long time. Like, oof, I run out of stamina for that fast because the plot moves so fast. But we've got some really, like, truly like unhinged twists and characters come up in that game, and it's so much fun.
I would
all right,
love...
my top 3.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh no. My top 3 list: Kane, Love Me, Dr. Eluso. Oh no, which villain is my favorite villain? I like them all. I like them all so much. Connie just is so good at NPCs. Like every single NPC they build is like my favorite NPC, so this is such a hard game.
It's like, is the
also
NPC
really
your
like-
favorite, or is Connie your favorite? That's the real question.
Therein lies the question. Therein lies the question. And then I think just Jara Sure from another home game that we ran. I love her. I'm devoted to that huge muscular bush woman.
Jara Sure. Yeah, she's a good one.
So you talked a little about God Killer. Can you explain for us what is Holy Punk?
Thank you for asking. Sort of taking after the tradition of cyberpunk, or steampunk. Holy Punk is sort of like my way of describing, I think a lot of Holy Punk media already exists. I just don't think like a term has emerged to coin it yet. of media that aesthetically grapples with themes of divinity and its relationship to power and mortality, but in an anti-authoritarian way. Hence the punk. So I would classify Elden Ring as a holy punk game. I would classify Lore Olympus as a holy punk media. I would classify, honestly, Percy Jackson as holy, like one could argue.
Oh.
Any sort of like piece of media. Usually it has like a dystopian or some sort of like dark or more like adult twist to it. But it's an open word that I invite others to use, right? To describe media they consume or media that they make. I just figured that it was about time that we made, there was a word coined for it.
So that would describe Preacher.
Yes, 100%. Preacher, I think, would be holy punk. Like, it can be applied to any manner of religion, I would say. Made up, fantastical, as well as, like, media that deals with real world religions. You could argue Supernatural is like a holy punk, but I wouldn't necessarily qualify Supernatural because I don't think it takes after the punk side of it necessarily, being a show that is all white men, white men, right? Though I watched a lot of it growing up, so I feel like I get to critique it.
It's a very good Monster of the Week show.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would say. Well, good is it's bingeable.
Well, I described Supernatural
it's
as
bingeable.
I was like, I'm not attractive enough. I'm not attracted to men enough to enjoy Supernatural. Is how I put it.
Oh no, my bisexual ass here, like.
Listen, I'm just gonna say
I'm a sapphic bi. I am bisexual, but I'm not attracted to men enough to enjoy Supernatural.
I think a lot of these are just good omens, I would say, perhaps. Hades, I would qualify. Lucifer, I can't speak on Lucifer necessarily because I haven't seen it. But I would say, like, yeah, it's not just, like, sort of like how Cyberpunk doesn't describe every single sci-fi piece of media that's ever existed. I would say Holy Punk wouldn't describe every single piece of media that grapples with divinity in any way that's ever existed, right? Like, the punk part is still important, right? It has to have a spine. The media has to say something about divinity, that punches up, not down, right? Like, unequivocally. So, as, I guess, the coiner, the originator of the word, if you're gonna describe your work that way, like, that's what it's about, right? Like, straight up, it's not just like, ooh, look, a god, right? Like, it's, anyone could just throw God into a piece of media, but, like, it's gotta mean something, it's gotta say something.
The 90s kid in me just, like, got Joan Osborne stuck in my head. Like, what if God was one of us?
One of us. That was one of the first guitar, I, like, taught myself to, like, play the opening thing on guitar when I was a kid. Just a stranger on the bus. Yeah.
Hey, you two were strangers on the bus.
It's coming full circle.
Full circle. Full circle. There it is.
Definitely yes to American Gods, I would say. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Dogma.
And books too. Like, I think a lot of that draws inspiration from The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, like, really amazing, like, queer fantasy novels that have come out that also, like, have to do with divinity as well.
You could argue, like, the Locked Tomb series is holy punk. You could argue.
I would certainly say that the Locked Tomb series. Yeah. Hell yeah.
God Gideon
is a
the horrible man.
Hero the Ninth.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I know what we're doing in December.
Yeah, no, I think I love the genre. I love the coining of the term. I'm so here for it. Excited. This is wonderful.
Okay, kind of switching gears a little bit. See, I've seen you talk about it before, but I can't quite remember. Who is Pie Sharp?
Oh my god. Okay, so this is gay. I'm gonna be gay on main for you
now. On my
on this
Christian
channel?
Minecraft server, like.
Okay, so after Connie and I played those 3 sessions of that one D&D game where I didn't realize that you could be like that romance was a thing. Connie immediately started GMing the actual first campaign that I was ever a part of, which lasted for like a year and a half and included like my two best friends from college, and Connie GMing us through this, Connie like post-apocalyptic nightmare world, right? And my character was called Virgo Chance. And Virgo Chance had a love interest named River, who was a very, very hot tiefling. They have been reincarnated since as gods in Ndake. Don't worry about it. It's very gay. But they had a child named Pisces Sharp Chance. So Pie Sharp. And that was the character that I played in the first game that we ran when Connie and I moved to Minneapolis, which is where I didn't meet Erica, but where Erica and I and Connie all started playing for the first time together, which is kind of like the beginning simmers of Transplanar. We played in a home game like pre-pandemic at our friend Arlo's house. And oh, my delightful Pie Sharp was a warlock of the Raven Queen, and their parents had disappeared, and they were out looking for them. So that's who Pie Sharp is. And when we were making Transplanar, I was like, well, I don't want to just like have my name on the internet. I want to have like an art Twitter, but I guess I'll just use like the one OC that I have right now, Pie Sharp Art. Pie Sharp Art. There it is, Pie Sharp Art. And it has been that way ever since, even though I haven't played them in a long, long time and I miss them a lot.
It's such a good name. What was the full name again? Because Pie Sharp is good, but the full name is also very good.
Pisces Sharp Chance, after Virgo, Chance, and River.
Cute.
Because like thinking astrology too, like Pisces is a water sign, so River, and then Virgo, who also has an astrological name. It's gay. It's very gay.
Oh, this is just feeding my very gay heart today, and I love it. It's making me very happy.
Me too.
Playing the child of other OCs that have like a finished campaign is something that I never thought that I would be super into, but I actually am. I think it's a really interesting way to like, for me to just like keep that spirit of like, I don't know, it's really interesting to me to play like the children of your past OCs.
Yeah, I played a series of siblings. And so we had like a West Marches campaign, and it depended on like what if I was going to do what one shot, or what mood I was in, or what the rest of the team's makeup was. But they were all named, like the whole family had very Irish names. I paid someone to help me learn my Irish accent. And it was so fun to play all these three siblings that I would play and had art for, because like, I don't know, it's just fun. It's fun to like have a thorough backstory in that way.
I love that.
More gay because she was more gay than everyone else. Amazing.
See, you mentioned your art account. I would love to know what influences your art style.
Ooh. I mean, there are so many amazing tabletop artists in the world. Jay is in chat right now. If you don't follow their art account, you really, really should. Just right off the bat, I can think of that. So, I mean, I did a lot of digital drawing when I was like a tween, where I was like on MS Paint, like drawing warrior cats. I won't lie. I was drawing warrior cats on MS Paint when I was a kid. And then that kind of like, I like stopped. Do that. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm gonna run past it as fast as I can. So I kind of like fell out of practice though for a really, really long time. And then again, during this D&D game where I was playing Pi, a friend of mine, like who was also in the game, was like, I have an extra iPad and pencil, and I had been working at a art museum as a like art gallery attendant, and I would sit there and I had like a little pocket thing, so I would like draw out scenes from our D&D game while I was like waiting in the art museum because I was bored out of my mind. We weren't allowed to have our phones, so I would draw, and I was like getting back into it, right? And then I would and then this person was like, here, have an iPad and an Apple Pencil. And I was like, well, my God, okay, I will take it. And I have always been inspired by, I think, just like I followed a lot of digital artists for a long time. I'm having a hard time like coming up with stuff off the top of my head. But there are so many amazing tabletop artists out there. And I think the inspiration really comes from like playing in really beautiful games that Connie has like so deeply like illustrated that they are so clear in my mind that I desperately want to put them on paper. And I think that's where a lot of like my impulse comes to like draw like tabletop stuff, because it is so nice to like get those beautifully like described images out into the world. It feels really good.
Follow-up question. Did you make a Warriors OC? Because Jay did.
Jay. All right. I'm going to admit something to all of you right now. It's a little embarrassing. So when I was a kid, I didn't have access to TV or internet very much. I lived in a place that just like I wasn't able to access it. And so what I would do in my free time is I would make up not just one Warrior Cats OC, but literally like dozens and dozens and dozens of my own Warrior Cat clans. Fill out every single, like, what cat was in every single one of those, write them all down, and then draw all of them. So yes, Jay, I did have Warrior Cats OCs. It's nobody's business how many there were. There were a lot.
If it makes you feel any better, I had like 20 different mermaids that I had drawn on my wall, and I should have known how gay I was, because like I always drew the boobs first and then the hair. So I should have known. But like, and so I had names for all of them and relationships and how they were all related and all of these things. We all have that special interest around that age, you know, of discovery of who we are.
Let's all embarrass ourselves. Connie, what was yours? I had Red Wall OCs.
Oh, Red Wall. I tried reading that to my students, but it was they couldn't get into it. It was such a bummer.
I had a Yu-Gi-Oh OC. Her name was Sia. CIAA. Not like the chandelier woman. She had long blue hair and an eye patch.
Yes.
I thought this was the coolest shit. She wore a sleeveless white tank top, right? And these like, I don't know why I thought this was cool. Baggy cargo shorts with a lot of pockets and like a chain, right? Like I would draw the chain, like a chain that hung off her belt. And because I was obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh, she had an ankh. She would like wear an ankh. Yes. Connie cultural appropriation Chong when I was 12 years old, because I didn't know any better. And she was like related to Yami Bakura, the evil version of Bakura. She was like related. And I would roleplay her on AIM with my best friend in elementary and middle school. And we had a blast. That shit got dark real fast.
I love that. It brings it back to the tragedy. It's fantastic.
Right? And I feel like it's also a universal queer experience.
Yep. Message boards as a teen are why I'm into tabletops now. Online RPs. Yep. That's
the Neil boards
generator. Mm-hmm.
I roleplayed on Neopets. I was very prolific. I actually met a lifelong friend on Neopets who got me the job that I now have as a narrative designer on a AAA game, because they're like a senior like narrative designer at this incredible company in the States. But like that's beside the point. The connections we make, right? Like by being gay nerds. And Gaia Online. That was my other stomping ground. Gaia Online. Yep.
I like that we really just take these questions and we just go for it. We just will absolutely. I don't even know how I got to Warrior. Yeah, the art style. I don't know why we're talking about Warrior Cats OCs now. I'm sorry for
because
what I've
it's all related.
Because we can,
and because it's our show and we feel like it.
Because I'm gay.
This is a safe space for talking about queer shit.
Speaking of queer shit, see, were you a theater kid? I can say this because I was a theater kid and I'm gay. Were you a theater kid? And I just lost the question. Tell us
Sorry.
about how that impacts your work in TTRPGs.
Oh,
Informs
boy.
your work, I guess.
I'm sorry, it is C story time right now. So I'm actually not a self-identified theater kid. I didn't actually work in theater very much at all, but I did. All right. So this is a complicated series of events that have led in my life. When I was in college, I met this group who are a group of queer theater makers, performance artists who basically toured this show across the country when I was 19. They are, oh man, they did this amazing show about environmental disaster that was called The Wastelands. It was a folk punk opera based loosely around Dante's Purgatory. And I basically went on tour with them, and they do this style of performance called grotesque work, which is very, very physically demanding, and kind of like fringe experimental theater work. Got really into that, went back to college after I toured with them and was like, well, shit, I have to move my body now, so I guess I'll join the dance department. So then I became a dancer. And then I got into theater work through that. But as a dancer, I think the way that informs my TTRPG work is that I can get very like physical in the way that I like to perform. Even though like we're only here with a lot of our virtual performances now, this like has a lot to do with my, I think like just the affect that I have when I'm performing with my face and with my body. But also I think with my like interesting character comes from that, because as a dancer, I don't actually get words to express the story that I'm telling with my body. And similarly, I feel like TTRPGs are very action oriented. So telling the story with your character's actions is something that resonates with me a lot, actually, as a dancer, in the way that I have to express themes, like mood, like if I'm telling a literal, like one-for-one story, or if I am just like kind of expressing an emotion, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to pull that into my tabletop work of not just letting my words speak for me in terms of like what I want to say about what I'm doing. And I think that's like the most one-to-one direct translation of how my like specifically dance work affects and influences the way that I am a tabletop performer. It's just like a lot of fun for me. So yeah, I hope that was thorough.
Absolutely, it was. So we just have a couple more questions left. Connie, can you tell us about your quote in New York Times? What? And what the interview process was like?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, these questions they're just slaying, yeah, so
I told you guys, we do research.
This is very impressive, Nikki and Kristina. This is extremely impressive research. I am very impressed by this whole process. But I spoke to this wonderful reporter, Amelia Diamond, from the New York Times, and she reached out to me basically being like, I want to get your perspective on where you think D&D is going. You know, like, well, like as a community member, like I'd love to just hear, you know, I'm doing this piece about D&D and the future of D&D and tabletop games and whatnot. And she was really great, really fantastic, very professional, like very friendly. We spoke over Zoom for like an hour. And she asked me really interesting questions about like my perspective on TTRPGs and what I think the future of TTRPGs is. And I stand by everything I said in the New York Times, which is, well, I think the future is queer, right? Like the future of TTRPGs is women, it's queer people, it's people of color, you know, it's all the people who have been marginalized historically, right? Like, cause we are the people making shit pop off. Like we're the ones doing making innovations in the space, right? Like I'm really happy that Wizards released, Tasha's with, the variant race rules. But also like queer people of color have been doing that, you know, like years ago, right? Like the class modifier module was a thing. Like people have been homebrewing the shit out of it and putting it up for free, you know, or for like $3 or something on like Drive-Thru RPG, on itch, whatever, like making these really dope innovations in the space. So I truly believe that the future of TTRPGs and D&D that I want to see is one where, queer folks, folks of color, you know, women, disabled folks, right? Like marginalized folks are given more resources and platforms for us to share our stories and for us to like put our contributions to the forefront of what everyone associates with TTRPGs, right? Because we are the ones doing the cool shit anyway. We might as well like get recognized and get money for it, right? So like that was, I think, the thrust of what I was trying to say to Amelia. She was really great, asked really great follow-up questions, mostly just let me talk. We actually had to do 2 interviews because for the first half I mostly just told her, I was like, this is what D&D is, and then like by the end of it she was like, I kind of already knew that, let's schedule like a follow-up, because like I just sort of info dumped and like she was very polite, like let me talk, right? So we had to like do a follow-up interview where she actually got the quotes from me that she was looking for, because I tend to just sort of talk, as y'all have noticed. So that was great. She was a total professional, really, really cool throughout the entire process, and emailed me the link when it was live and was like, it was great. It was great working with her. And I was so happy to like read through the article and like see the other really great folks, Unari, formerly of Three Black Halflings, now doing their own dope shit, right? And like entertainment, like got like a really nice closer quote for that. I believe Marisha Ray was also interviewed for that particular thing, and cast member of Dimension 20 as well. So it's like seeing everyone's perspective, right? Also perspectives of I think like a local game store owner or something like was also interviewed. So that was really cool to read and witness. And I'm glad that it's getting more and more mainstream and like more people as the hobby grows every year, right? Like every year it's like unprecedented levels of people playing D&D. And then I think like D&D is the gateway for a lot of people, like, and they like learn like other systems and like other kinds of communities out there as well. So I think as it continues to grow, I don't anticipate it stopping or slowing down or going down anytime soon. Because there's something magical about playing a TTRPG that you can't get from a video game, you can't get from watching a show, you can't get from tuning into a movie or watching sports. There's something very specific about this niche, that a very specific itch that it scratches, which is why I think it'll just keep growing.
It's like collaborative storytelling, and I also think it's an ancient principle of gathering in a circle and telling stories together. So I feel like that's just part of our DNA, so to speak, as humans.
You mentioned the changes to the racial modifiers. I'd love to hear more, because here at TTRPG we found the positive experiences we've had and created for others make up for difficulties we've faced in the space. What keeps you motivated to continue to fight bioessentialism and racism in TTRPGs?
I would say it's what's really interesting about this question is for me that it's less about like a motivation and more about like it's just kind of what I have to do to exist in the space as my most authentic self. Right? It's not like one day I'll roll up and be like, you know what? I'm sick of doing this shit. Let's just do, let's just play orcs that kill elves because they're orcs. Like that just isn't, I would never do that just because that's just not the kind of story I'm interested in ever. So just by default, right? Like the kinds of stories I want to tell are just non-colonial. They're just anti-Orientalist. They're just not racist because I'm just not interested in telling racist stories. And sometimes, you know, like mistakes happen, right? Like it's, you know, it takes work and it takes active intention, I think, to build worlds that are anti-racist, right? And like grapple thoughtfully with the idea of fantasy races, and, you know, fantasy versions of oppression, right? That takes work and intentionality, definitely. But I'm just like, that's just not the kind of story I'm interested in, right? So like, in terms of the motivation, right? Like that's, the motivation for me is to just like keep telling stories I want to tell. But outside of that, it's been, someone mentioned in chat the power of community, and I just want to +1 to that because getting to curate and surround myself with like-minded people, like other marginalized people of all stripes, has also been a crucial part, of my TTRPG journey. It's fascinating because sometimes I'll get a glimpse of a side of Twitter that I am just not on. That is also TTRPGs, right? Like I'll be like, whoa, that table is all white men, right? Yo, and they've got like 80 CCV. What the fuck? Right? I'll be like, I have never heard of you. I don't know who you are. You are not my community, right? Like you never show up to my streams. I don't show up to your streams. Like, listen, we're like, we might share the same hobby, but we are not the same family. and that's true because there are Nazis in this hobby, right? Like there's straight up Nazis in this hobby, who like play D&D to play out their like little white supremacist fantasies, and I like, which is why I do believe in like this idea of like a greater community of TTRPG folks, but I also am very intentional and very selective about the shows I agree to sign up for and like the kinds of appearances I make and the kinds of connections I allow myself to form with other people. Because I know that not everyone shares the same perspective as me. Like I've been thankful, grateful, lucky enough to be surrounded by people who also agree that bioessentialism is whack, and I want to look at like other ways of doing race in D&D, whether that's like getting rid of it entirely or trying to subvert it somehow, etc. Like whatever kind of work. That's all great. I have room and space and interest in holding flexibility for those kinds of discussions. I don't have room and interest in flexibility and holding discussions about whether or not I even deserve to be here, right, as a person, right, whether my humanity is even valid in this space, right? So just being really liberal with the block button, I think, to like protect my peace and my energy, and also being really intentional about like the kinds of bonds I choose to forge here.
Yeah. And like in the people you say yes to about playing in games, because I've been invited to tables where I was like, it's all white and I'd be the only woman. No. Like, you think I want to play with a bunch of straight white dudes? No, I don't wanna. So yeah, it is, you have to be very intentional in this space because it's very easy to get into situations that would be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And just to kind of to jump off of to use that academic jargon, to jump off of you, Connie, in that way, it's like the idea of like how do you stay motivated is like because there is no other option, right? Like the other option is to be bioessentialist and to be racist, and that is actually not an option, right? Like that is simply not an option, and it takes work. So it's either like this, it's either the work or it's nothing, and there is no in between, right? So that's kind of where I fall in terms of that, and I second everything that Connie has said so far. And I think there's also like the angle of like, oh well, why do we keep playing D? Oh my god, there's a bug on my desk. Sorry.
Is it a big one?
It was centipede like. Horrible. I put my speaker on it.
Do you need a moment?
No, I'm good. I'm good actually. I'm the bug gay.
I was gonna say, which one's the bug gay?
Like I was.
People would look at me and my fiance and think it's my fiance. It's me. I'm the bug. I'm the bug squisher. I'm the spider getter rid over.
I know that really didn't actually do me any favors to make you think that I was, but I promise I am. The other thing is, I think like this idea of like, oh, why not switch to a different system, which I think is like a multi-tiered answer of like, we have been playing this for almost 2 years, like specifically with Transplanar's main campaign. We have played a lot of other games, like on stream, etc., etc. But also it feels important to me that like, not only are we playing other games on stream, but also like that D&D is not actually just represented on twitch.tv/D&D tag by only white men, right? Because if everyone in the space leaves D&D, then the only people who are going to be left are like the white Nazis playing D&D. And there is like, I have specific feelings about like, yeah, like it sucks that D&D is the biggest tabletop. Like I think there are a lot of games that are like much like better, like they have a much better design. They're like are able to tell like different and more worthwhile stories, but also like D&D is a massive powerhouse. And I don't want like other people to come into D&D and be like, oh, there are only like white cis het men in this hobby. Like, no, we are here. We are a Transplanar. We are here, and this is like what we are doing. And you don't actually get to take this space away from us because we have carved it out and we have done the work, and like that is not something that I'm willing to just give up.
That is such a good
I just want to snap.
We don't do D&D on this channel very often, but now I want to because that's a really good point. I'm gonna have to think about
It's like
that.
sort of like definitely like completely agree with C, and like it's complicated because Hasbro be Hasbroing. Right? Like Hasbro be Hasbroing, right? Like we can't, like no ethical consumption, right? But a big reason why I didn't start playing D&D earlier is because I thought it was a white dude thing. right? I was like, I'm like a queer Asian person. I don't know. Like, I don't know any queer Asians who play D&D, right? Like, both in my circle of friends and also, like, visibly. Like, I knew about Critical Role, right? And, like, Dimension 20 came along a little later, but I was like, oh, like, they look like they're having fun, but I don't know if it's for me. Like, I don't know if this hobby is for people like me, right? And it wasn't until, and Adventure Zone is also like the, you know, the McElroys, they're all white dudes. They've got great chemistry, right? And I enjoyed listening to them, but, like, it was hearing the kinds of stories they got to tell that really made me want to play it. And I was kind of like, fuck it. I don't care if this space isn't for me. I'm gonna do it because it looks fun. Right. But it was despite, not because of, right. Or like not even neutrally. So I'm very passionate about making D&D seem more representative to folks who are outside of the hobby or like parallel to the hobby, cosplayers, I don't know what cosplayer who doesn't play D&D, you know what I mean? Like, artists and whatnot, like, folks who, like, might gravitate in nerddom around it, you know, but not play it yet. And I just want D&D as, like, the biggest system for whatever reason, for a confluence of reasons, one could say. I want that major powerhouse to also seem very inviting and representational of the actual player base. And I think I want to address another part of that question, which I think is a great question. Is to continue to fight by us. Right. Is because it goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier, right? About the future of this space. And I am very passionate about like helping to make the future of this space align with the vision that I want it to be, right? So like I will continue to fight for more seats at more tables, like for people of color, for queer people, for trans people, right? Like I will continue to do that, no matter what. Because it's just who I am. Right. It's like at that point, you could call it praxis, you know, you could call it ideology, you know, but that's just what's important to me. And I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't do that. Right. Like that's just because I am here because of all the doors that other marginalized people have opened for me. Right. Like I'm not here alone. Like none of us make it alone. Right. So I'm like paying it forward and paying it back. And I will always do that no matter what.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we have been on for over an hour now. So we have, and that was our last question. And so our real last question is, other than Transplanar RPG, which everyone should watch, do you have anything else you'd like to plug or talk about before we wrap up?
I have a few things. I should open my calendar so I know exactly what they are and when they're coming out. Connie has a lot of stuff too. You can catch me, well, actually, I will just plug Transplanar again because our Arc 6 premieres on Saturday the 4th, which is this upcoming Saturday. This is our 6th arc. We are just absolutely bananas. Come check it out. We have a new overlay. Everything's going to be really beautiful. Our pre-recorded episodes. If you have never watched Transplanar before, but you want to and are scared because this is our like 80-something episode, Arc 6, and you don't want to have to watch everything, we do have a podcast episode. We have podcasts that are back in Arc 3 that are catching up with us. We also have a written recap document. So if you would like to read about what we've done, you can go to bit.ly/transrecap with the T and the R capitalized, and there are 1-page synopses of every episode's plus entire arc overview synopses that are a few pages long. So come join us. It'd be great to see you there. Connie has the time in chat, so thank you, Connie. And I am also going to be playing an extremely unhinged vampire on an unannounced game over on Gehenna Gaming, which should be coming out in the second week of June. And you can also catch me over on Friends Who Roll Dice on Thursday the 16th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for a game of For the Queers, which was written by the incredible CJ, who was in chat earlier, and is just featuring a slew of amazing folks that I played with exactly 1 year ago. On that day was when we met all of each other and have formed lasting friendships. So those are the two, I think, like big things going on. I'm also in a few other things that are not announced yet, so keep your eyes on my Twitter if you'd like to see all of the nonsense that I get up to, because it is truly nonsensical and extremely unhinged. Watch me make my warrior cats OCs on the internet.com. Connie, what are you up to?
Yes. So I'm just gonna plug Transplanar again, just like C. We stream Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central. It's just so y'all know what you're getting into, if it is your first time interacting with Transplanar content, it is a dark fantasy campaign. Though we are all trans people of color series set in an original non-colonial anti-Orientalist world. But it's very heavy. It's a very serious campaign. That like we make jokes, but we deal with some heavy, dark themes. And we have a lot of, it's drama. It's queer drama at its finest. I like to describe it as like the L word, but like a lot more diverse, meets the end of the world. That's how I like to describe it. So if you like messy relationships,
but Connie keeps doing it.
It works.
It's beautiful.
It's my elevator pitch.
I love it.
It's my enticing way of getting more queer people to watch us. If you like fucked up, messy, queer relationships between PCs and NPCs, X's up the wazoo. If you like really messed up monster designs, descriptions that just won't quit, and very attractive, hot, muscular women who are plot relevant all the time, you should watch Transplanar RPG, because that's the best way I can sell it, I think. So that's Transplanar RPG. I'm the GM and producer for that. Other than that, I am working on a game that I mentioned earlier, God Killer RPG. It is being, the Ashcan is being published by Magpie Games, which I'm very, very excited about. Hopefully there will be a Gen Con release, but in the meantime, to stay tuned for updates and an eventual official actual play podcast series using God Killer RPG. Follow twitter.com/GodKillerRPG. It is spelled exactly how it is said, God Killer RPG. And follow me personally on Twitter and TikTok at @ByConnieChang. That's ByConniechang. If you want to toss me a coin, as low as $3 a month starting, to support my work, you can do that at ko/fi/.com/ByConnieChang, ByConniechang. That definitely helps a lot with keeping me doing the things that I like to do here in my gay little world. I think that's all in terms of plugs I've got so far.
No, your cast Q&A on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget about that. Thank you, C, my beautiful producer and dramaturg. This coming Tuesday, that's the last day of AAPI Heritage Month. If you're free, you should definitely tune in. Let me just double check the time real fast right now. I believe it is 6 p.m. Thank you. 6 p.m. Eastern. That is 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Central.
4 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Central.
4 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Central. Thank you so much. I failed to convert the time right now, but it's at 6 p.m. Eastern, last day of AAPI Heritage Month, which is May, where I will be discussing anti-Orientalist world building in TTRPGs. So if that's a topic interesting to you, if you're already past the sort of like introduction to racism 101 hurdle, you're like, racism is bad. I get that, right? If we're on the same page that racism is bad and that portraying orcs as evil or having evil races without any nuance is bad, if we're past that hurdle, then you can watch this thing. Because if you don't understand that quite yet, this is not the stream for you. I won't be doing any one-on-one stuff. I will basically just be offering how I do the thing. Like okay, great. I say I do non-colonial anti-Orientalist world building. What are actual tools and what are actual things that I do to make that happen? So if that's interesting to you, it is a free ass lecture. Tune in, Transplanar RPG, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Put that in your calendar, and I will be having a tip jar open. So if you like my work and want to support what I do, you can tip me then. And that's it. That's all in terms of plugs that we've got.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Kristina, plugs.
Gosh, I feel like I plugged some stuff at the start of the show, but yeah, tune in this week to some stuff on Gehenna's channel for some drama, some Latine drama. I'm so excited to be again at an all Latine table playing Pasión de las Pasiones. It's going to be really, really exciting. And I am a GM with Magpie's curated play program, and you can book with me. I'm running a lot of Avatar Legends. So
is that new? Have you been with them very long?
No, May was my first month.
Yay!
And so trying it out, really, really enjoying it. So yeah, you can book with me and play some Avatar, which I got into over the pandemic. I never watched it before because I was a very, very sheltered child with not a lot of access. And it's something that I knew it was a hole in my nerdy knowledge. And it's something that is so important to so many people. So I was very, very excited to be able to watch it and loved it so much. Read the Kyoshi books, loved them so much. So yeah.
I want a Kyoshi show so bad. Give the gays what they want and give us a gay Kyoshi show. God damn it. Okay.
Absolutely. Kyoshi movie. A movie. I want a movie and a show.
a show and a movie. Okay, so
How about you? What are you doing?
well, it's not coming until July, but we will have Avatar Reclamations coming back. So if you like Avatar Legends, watch our show. It is very good. It is very gay. It made us cry. Like, it's a really fun game, and we all love playing with each other so much. So please tune in for that when that comes back. But until then, I had to open my calendar. See, that was a very good idea. So on our next show is on Saturday the 4th at 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 12, 1 p.m. Eastern, and that is an all Latine stream of Nahual. Did I say it right that time? That's the Contaminated. It's really good. We watched it on Saturday, and it was amazing. On June 8th, we have our take 2 of our Romance on the High Seas, which is CJ's game Matelotage. I'm probably still saying that wrong, but that's how I say it so I could spell it correctly. And that one is going to be awesome and really gay, and I'm excited about it. Then we have, starting on the 17th, we have our Haunted West stream, gay and sad and spooky. On the 18th, we have an all-teacher cast of playing When the Sun Dies. It's going to be very cathartic for us teachers who've had a very rough year, especially within the last week. We also have our Starship Troopers stream coming up, so if you like fascist, not fascism, if you like anti-fascist military stories, tune in for that. We have a zombies, Jane Austen type thing coming up that's going to be spooky. I don't know that much about it, but that's starting next month. Whew, so many things. Oh, we have Rainbows and all himbos, thembos, and bimbos stream for Quality Texas, I think is what we decided on for a fundraiser, and that'll be really fun, and I'm really excited, and my wig came in today, and I can't wait for you all to see this character. I've also been practicing my Jennifer Tilly voice. I am ready. I'm ready to be a baby-voiced bimbo, and it's going to be wonderful, and she's going to be super gay. Okay, the end. Nikki,
I cannot wait for this stream. And I'm just also very excited about our Matelotage stream as well, because my brain is nothing but gay pirates, and it has been gay pirates since I was like 8. So I'm really excited for all the hyperfixations to just
collide,
squish together.
Yes, gay pirates, and then gay westerns, and then gay spookies. It's all gay around here, and we love it. All right, thanks for watching, and make sure you tune in June for our Pride episode, where we will have Jay, aka Nala Wu, and I forgot who the other person who's going to be on that episode. I think it's Charlene Bayer from Tabletop Titties. We will see. I will post about it on our Twitter. Okay, bye everybody. All right.